I first came to this church 6 years ago, but irregularly, partly because I was traveling a lot. Just about exactly a year ago, I started to come all the time and became involved in more things. I had no idea then about the big changes that were waiting for me a few months later. Although I moved around a lot when I was younger, I've had a pretty stable life recently. I've lived in Berkeley for 25 years, in the same house for the last 13. I've worked for the same company for 23 years. In January, I moved out of my house to do some work on it, and I've been in temporary places since then. And while I had been thinking about changing my job, with yet another reorganization at work, I found out that that time was now. I took a long time to think about the next step and talked to many people, including many here. What I ended up deciding wasn't in my mind when I began. In February, I'm going to Paraguay for 2 years to be a Peace Corps volunteer working in community economic development. That was a little unexpected because at first I thought I might move from investment risk to big data and tech or something. And I'll figure out the next step when I get back in 2018. This church made a big difference in 2 ways. When you're thinking about what to do with your life, what more you need and can contribute big changes, church is a good place to do that, and a ton of prayer. I talked about this with a lot of people here, although you may be surprised that our conversations had anything to do with the Peace Corps. I'm not at all sure I would have made the same decision if I hadn't been here, and that's a big deal, because I'm really happy about it. Second, I got a lot of support more broadly and spiritually. Spending a year without a fixed place to live and thinking about leaving a company you've been at for 23 years could be anxiety-provoking experiences. But I wasn't anxious this year. I was happy. I half wish all this had happened earlier. I definitely wish I'd started coming here more earlier. And if this is what happens in the first year of that, I can't wait for another year. And that makes this a place I want to support back. How I decide how much to give is easy to describe. I believe in tithing. I grew up in the South in the 1970s, and I think every single person I knew went to a Protestant church. And I don't remember there being much hesitation in talking about money and pledging. At the beginning of the pledge season here, Laura talked about how as a child, she and her siblings would fight over who got to put the envelope in the plate on Sunday morning. We did that in my family too, and we knew what was going on with pledging. I thought everyone tithed. I think I even thought that you would get in trouble if you didn't, like someone might call you when you filed your taxes or something. But I learned later that's not true. My dad used to volunteer at the library in tax season to help people with their returns. Many people who came did not have a lot of money, but he found they were giving like 20 to 25% of it away, a lot of it to their churches. But 10% seems to be a good amount for many people, where we notice it and it's a commitment. Some call it giving till it hurts, some giving till it feels good, or a little bit of both. But I do think looking at percent is a good way to go. So in the Chronicle of Philanthropy, you can look up giving statistics. Here in Alameda County, households with gross incomes under $25,000 give away 6%. Those over $200,000, 2%. Thinking a percent helps stop that decline. Americans give a lot to charity in terms of both the fraction of us who give and how much, comparatively in the world. For instance, we were #1 in global giving in 2014 in one measure of average across giving, volunteering, and helping strangers. It can be argued that some other developed countries have more social benefits and higher taxes. I'm not trying to make a point about politics here, but about money and motivation. We Americans have the privilege and responsibility individually to pay for the better world we want. And from what I can see, we go a long way to doing that. I find that example pretty inspiring, and I hope you do too, and want to improve Alameda County statistics. We ask you this pledging season to give generously to this church, to support our community and our mission in our city and our world.